So, I want to explain really quick why skill-based matchmaking in World of Tanks will never work. Because there was a thread on the forums yesterday, the day before, I don't remember. Basically, some guy was saying the original question was, why does Wargaming not have skill-based matchmaking? Now, my first response, I was the first response to the topic. I said basically, it's been tried in other games and it will not work on World of Tanks. And that's when it fucking started. People then first question that I got were like, well, how do you know it wouldn't work in World of Tanks? Well, basically, this isn't going to work because it's already been tried. So, you know this thing up here called ranked battles? Yes, this was intended to be exactly ranked skill-based matchmaking. But it didn't turn out to be that because Wargaming can't really do anything right, and it turned it out to just being a massive grind fest where you didn't have to be a good player to get high ranks, you just have to play a lot of games. So that's obviously not skill-based matchmaking. That's just whoever puts the most effort into it. Um, but let's say even then you make it skill-based matchmaking. Well, what's it, what? Okay, so the argument that a lot of people make is that it doesn't need to be skill-based matchmaking where each team is filled with 60 percenters. It can be you can have 48 percenters and 60 percenters on the same team, just the same amount on both teams, or try to get the same amount. And yes, on paper this makes sense, but in reality it doesn't. And I'll explain why. Let me bring up the original thing from the forums really quick, just so I can basically read off my responses. Um, yeah, I think this one probably quoted it. One second, one second. Just I don't know, entertain yourself for a second. Go make a cup of coffee or something. This might take a minute to find. Uh, this guy. Okay. So basically, my original thing that I said was I was quoting something like this, but I was quoting it as in to say what someone's response would be. Wouldn't it be better to have some equally skilled players on each team? On paper, yes. In practice, the skilled players can just avoid each other and farm the other weaker players. Even if they do face off, the one that wins will still get to stomp the other team. So this is the problem, is that this guy counters with this, except it wouldn't need to be 60 percenters playing 60 percenters. The argument is that instead of having better players randomly placed on each team, intentionally try to split the teams up so they have the same number of purples, about the same number of blues, blah 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 blah, you know, it's that stuff. Okay, this doesn't work, because it still remains, because I literally answer this right here. It's answered right here. And this thing right here answers that, but the guy still just kind of ignores it. I'm not really sure why. Because they can still just ignore each other on both teams, and this happens now. The 60 percenter, if so let's say matchmaking does get it right, each team has a really good player, a 65 percenter, who's just better than everyone else in the game. He can just roll the other 65 percenter. If he kills him, then he just gets to roll the rest of the team. Or let's say they both go different flanks, and they just get to roll each other's teams for free, because there's nothing else there to enforce it. If you're going to do skill-based matchmaking, everyone in the match has to be the same skill level, because there's no way to avoid those players still having the same issue of better players they're going up against, just taking them out because they're not as good of a player. You can't eliminate this problem unless you have all the players in the match having the same exact skill level. And if you think that what these people are proposing works, then you're just an idiot because you're not actually solving the problem. You're just trying to think that it solves the problem so you have an excuse of why you lose games. No, you lose games because you're bad, not because the enemy team has two players who are better than you. You know, personally, I enjoy going up against players who are better than me because it gives me a chance to improve, to learn from the mistakes I've made, so that I can, you know, not lose as many games. This is just how this works. It's just common sense. So, this argument, it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't. There was some other guy who was trying to say that what I was responding with didn't make any sense. it's just, it's just bad. There's no argument for why skill-based matchmaking works. This has been tried in other games, and the reason it will never work is because you do not have enough players in the high enough skill level to balance it out. The people at the high skill level would either never be able to play a game because there's just too few of them in queue at one time, or when they did, it would just be, you know, you wouldn't exactly have fair games still because of the way the game works in that kind of situation. A quick example, let's say everyone on both teams is like perfect skill level matches. Well, this game has RNG in it. So let's say that some guy at the beginning of the game just fires a shot halfway across the map in a KV2 and it one-shots one of the enemies without being spotted or anything. Well, this creates a problem because now one team is down a tank. And this makes it where there's still a possibility that you have a 15-0 wipe because RNG. It's just, this is a thing in this game and you have to accept that. And the moment you get to where it's 2-0 or something, it's hard for the enemy team to start recovering that because they're already down, two tanks. To your 15, they have 13. That's just an obvious overpower. They should start winning. It gets exponentially worse the more tanks you lose. This is the kind of point here that you're never going to have perfectly balanced games in this game. It's just, it can't happen. The only way that that would be able to happen is if there was no way for you to kill people without them being lit. There was no RNG at all, and that's just not how this game is. This game is RNG, random skill-based matchmaking, not skill-based, god damn it. Random matchmaking is the only thing that makes sense in this game, because the game itself is random. So, everything in this game is randomized. Why should the matchmaking not be randomized, I mean, I don't know. There was another point I wanted to make too, goddammit. It's just, we don't have enough players for this. In a game like StarCraft, skill-based matchmaking works because you only need, in a one-on-one situation, you need two players near the same skill level for them to go up. And that's skill-based because they're both at the same skill and they're going up against each other. That makes sense. That's skill-based matchmaking, but that's because you only need two people. And that game probably has a larger player base to begin with, so it's much easier to implement a skill-based matchmaking system into that game than it is to a game like World of Tanks, where you need 15 people on both teams. 30 people near the same skill level would be impossible to find. And then you say, again, you bring up your same argument, and you say, well, you don't need 15 people with the same skill on each team. You just need the same amount of people at each skill level. Again, though, this doesn't solve your problem. This still makes it where you have players that are just as good on each team, but they can just avoid the other good players and just kill the less talented players or whatever. There's no way to solve this issue in World of Tanks with the population issue. Now, I didn't want to be rude to anyone on the forums, but it's kind of hard to avoid calling people retarded when they bring up the same question that you just answered in the post that they just quoted. It's hard not to call people dumb. I mean, it does. It gets difficult, okay? So, if you have an actual good argument for why skill-based matchmaking works, please let me know. Because I'd love to hear someone's actual argument that makes some sense whatsoever, and that could actually work in this game. But if you don't, please stop bringing up the same points over and over. It just gets fucking annoying. There gets to a point where it's a little funny at first, like I was making some jokes about it, but now it's just annoying because you're not even listening to what I'm saying. You're just kind of quoting it, and saying, "Well, you didn't answer it, but I did answer it." So, um, I don't think there's anything I left out. If so, I'll hopefully remember here in the next 30 seconds. I don't think so. Uh, did I leave anything out? I don't know. I don't think I did. I think I addressed everything because there's not much to address. It doesn't work. And if you think it works, then yeah, I think you just need to just maybe think it through a bit more, or try to understand. Maybe I don't know. I don't know how to help you. I don't know. You're just dumb, I guess.